Imagine a maverick clergyman who forged his own ordination, who mocked and shocked colonial governors with poisoned pen letters and bitter satire, a fraudster, a bigamist, banished to Australia, and still he couldn't escape scandal. Meet Laurence Halloran, virtually unknown today, but a man who left havoc in his wake across 3 continents. In the world of early British colonial rule at the Cape of Good Hope, discipline was everything. Hierarchy, rules, decorum. And then came Laurence Halloran. His wit, audacity and sheer unpredictability exposed the cracks in a system that thought itself unshakable. This is a story of fraud and exile, of an imperial machine with an unlikely spanner in its works, of chaos against order. Laurence Hynes Halloran was born in 1765 in County Meath, Ireland. His father, a military officer and planter, died in a riding accident the next year. His mother, Eleanor, from County Longford, brought Laurence and his sisters to England. Later in life, Halloran boasted, "My father was a lieutenant colonel, my uncle was a colonial chief justice, and my maternal great-uncle was a general in the army and an Irish baron." There was some truth to this. His uncle, William Gregory, had been Chief Justice in Quebec, but Gregory lost the job for not speaking French. He ended up imprisoned for debt in Ireland, and later reappeared as a judge in South Carolina. He placed young Laurence at Christ's Hospital, a prestigious London school that taught navigation. Halloran's teacher, William Wales, had sailed with Captain James Cook, no less. At 16, Halloran joined the Navy. In a notorious incident, he was jailed for stabbing and killing a fellow midshipman. 2 years in prison followed, before his acquittal in 1784, an experience that might have crushed other men. For Halloran, it only hardened his audacity. Freed, he turned to poetry, witty, ambitious, full of learning. After marrying Mary Boucher, he opened a school near Exeter, teaching amongst others Robert Gifford, the future Baron Gifford. But the school collapsed into insolvency, and Halloran was accused of immorality. Already, brilliance and recklessness were constant companions. After converting from Catholicism to Protestantism, he became a naval chaplain. He served at Trafalgar on HMS Britannia. His booming voice came into its own, shouting instructions on deck amid the cannon fire. He later published verses about the Great Battle. They weren't bad. By 1807, he was chaplain to the Army and Navy at the Cape of Good Hope, now a British possession. The Dutch Reformed Church there was lent to the Anglican community for worship. For a while, things went smoothly. But in 1810, when he defended a British Army officer charged with duelling, Lieutenant General Henry Grey, military governor at the Cape, took exception. Grey was trying to stamp out duelling. Halloran had interfered in a military matter. The clash escalated. Ordered by Grey to Simonstown, Halloran refused. He resigned his commission and became a schoolmaster at the Latin school revived by Abraham de Mist, commissioner under the previous Batavian regime at the Cape. Then, from the shadows, Halloran struck. Anonymous letters began circulating in Cape Town, threatening, defamatory, sent to the very elite, including Grey himself. But then, disaster. Small details in the handwriting gave Halloran away. Governor Lord Caledon confronted him. What on earth did Halloran think he was doing? But Halloran doubled down, publishing Capabilities or South African Characteristics, a biting satire ridiculing Grey and other officials. Grey prosecuted him for libel. A young colony, trying to establish order, suddenly in uproar thanks to its own chaplain. As the historian George McCall Thiel put it, in a small society like Cape Town, the acts of a single erratic individual are often sufficient to keep the whole community in a state of turmoil. Halloran was that individual, intelligent, eccentric, and brazen. He still had friends. 50 citizens petitioned the governor, the Earl of Caledon, on his behalf. They even raised 1,200 rix dollars for him, but it was useless. Convicted, fined, imprisoned, and after 5 weeks banished from the Cape, he was 46, ruined, alone, and his troubles were only just beginning. Back in the English shires, Halloran drifted from one church position to another. He sought sympathy by publishing an exhaustive account of his libel trial. Instead, his past caught up with him. Investigations, initiated by one of many rectors he crossed swords with, revealed he was an imposter. His clerical posts had all been obtained under false pretences. His Aberdeen University divinity degree turned out to be bogus, a favour from a friend. Suddenly, every marriage and baptism he had conducted at the Cape was in doubt. In the end, Cape officials ruled them valid, but you could forgive those affected, and even their descendants today, for wondering. Did Halloran learn from disgrace? Not at all. In 1818, he was tried at the Old Bailey for franking a letter in the name of Sir William Garrow MP, defrauding the post office of 10p. He pleaded guilty, then railed in court against a phalanx of powerful opponents. But his theatrical defence backfired. The sentence, 7 years transportation to Botany Bay. From pulpit to prison ship, from leading Anglican cleric at the Cape to convict in New South Wales, Halloran's fall was spectacular. He was transported to Sydney. Granted a ticket of leave from Governor Lachlan Macquarie, he quickly returned to education. He established a private school for classical, mathematical and commercial education. When the authorities in London got wind, they voiced fierce opposition, but Halloran was supported by the convict-turned-merchant Simeon Lord and by New South Wales Governor Thomas Brisbane. Even the Royal Commissioner, John Bigg, who deplored employing such a man, admitted his skill as a teacher. But Halloran's scandals were far from over. Even in Australia, he couldn't resist the life of audacity and intrigue that had defined him. He might have lived comfortably. Instead, his paranoia and poisonous pen dragged him into endless lawsuits and crushing debt. His school shifted from place to place, creditors always at his heels. Imprisoned more than once, reduced to beggary, he scraped by, announcing books never written, lectures never given, always chasing survival. Then, in 1825, Halloran founded the Sydney Free Public Grammar School, with himself as headmaster and his son Henry, born in Cape Town, as undermaster. Henry later became a prominent public servant and minor poet. The school later became a cornerstone of learning in the colony, and for a moment, Halloran seemed to have found a measure of respectability. Within months, however, scandal engulfed both father and son, forcing the trustees to suspend the school's operations. Halloran's debts soon landed him in prison yet again. In 1827, he launched The Gleaner, a newspaper born of desperation. "I am compelled to write for bread," Halloran confessed. Unlike the fiery Colonial press, it was oddly moderate, even defending church and state. But Halloran's poor business sense and harsh regulations hindered it, and it was shut down within months after another libel suit. Meanwhile, his personal life remained complicated. He gained a second family, and in 1822 was reunited with them and their unmarried mother, Anna, who is believed to have been his niece. Anna died in 1823 after giving birth to their 12th child. In 1824, the 60-year-old Halloran bigamously married Elizabeth Turnbull, aged 16, who bore him 4 more children. Halloran's death in Sydney in 1831 provided one final chance to mock the establishment. He was a convert to Anglicanism, or so everyone thought, but he was buried in the Roman Catholic section of the Eastern Suburbs Memorial Park in Sydney. Had he actually converted at all? Even in his grave, Halloran, teacher, convict, poet and fake priest, kept people guessing. He remains a figure of contradictions, brilliant yet reckless, moral yet deceitful, a rogue who exposed the human vulnerabilities of a powerful colonial system. He was a thorn in the side of every institution he touched. He thrived on being disruptive, in education, the church, even colonial administration. His audacity wasn't just part of his personality, it was a method. Challenge power, expose hypocrisy, and watch the order crumble, even if only temporarily. His story is not without poignancy. Despite his frauds, he was a gifted teacher, and by all accounts a loving and generous man. Laurence Hynes Halloran shows us that even the most well-regulated empires have cracks, and that sometimes chaos takes human form. To authority, he was a loose cannon. To the rest of us, unforgettable.